Hey guys, so I finally finished Gates of Paradise, the fourth book in the V.C. Anders Castile series, via audiobook, and then I watched the Lifetime movie with pen and paper in hand. Those of you, if you've seen my V.C. Anders reviews before or have not, I'm going to do the best I can to go in order of beginning of the book slash movie to the end of the book slash movie, explaining all the ways that the book was different from the movie. I know someone who watched my previous review commented that they never read the books, only watched the movies, so they thought it explained a lot. Obvious physical differences. Don't know why Heaven's hair was red once again, and don't know why Annie's hair was blonde instead of being dark like her mother's. In the book, they left out the gazebo. The gazebo at Hasbrook House, where Annie grew up with her parents, Logan and Heaven, her half-brother Luke, and Drake. Her and Luke, from the time they were young children, were always out in the gazebo, pretending, making up stories about Farley, imagining what it would be like, and really from a young age, always sort of trying to suppress their true feelings for each other, believing themselves to be half-siblings. And Luke actually got into Harvard, not Harrelson, and Drake was actually home for Annie's birthday. She took him for a ride in her new convertible. That whole scene where he calls Annie, telling her that he's at Farthingale, Annie putting her mother Heaven on the phone, Heaven saying, "Please tell me this is a cruel joke, Drake." "No, someone's here that wants to say hi to you," and then Tony gets on the phone. That didn't happen in the book. He did go to visit Farthingale. He promised Annie that he would and tell her what it was like, but they kept it a secret from Heaven. They figured that it would upset her. Logan and Heaven's death actually took place several chapters into the book, so they didn't do as much of the story leading up to it as I would have liked. Fanny, once again, did not have her hillbilly backwoods accent that she should have had. I was very disappointed by that. Her 40th birthday party actually took place outside, not inside, and she never offered Annie a beer. Okay, so Heaven and Logan's death, the point in the book where everything changes, I guess. Annie actually woke up in the hospital in Winterow and then eventually was transported via helicopter to the hospital in Boston. She was never up and about in her wheelchair. She was confined to the bed mainly and never had that hysterical crying fit. Once in the hospital in Boston, the doctor told her he did expect that she would eventually recover and even said, "As odd as it sounds, we've got to hope for pain. Because if you can feel any sort of pain, that means that you can feel something and you're starting to recover." Now, this will become somewhat significant later on in the book / movie. Nurse Broadfield, they actually almost made her seem more menacing in the movie than she was in the book. Nurse Broadfield never tranquilized Annie on the ride to Farthingale, sticking her with a needle, because on the ride to Farthingale, Tony actually told Annie to watch for a break in the trees, and she would see Farley coming into the distance. Nurse Broadfield never tranquilized Annie with needles, and never at one point said, "It's the pill or the needle." They did give her sleeping pills from time to time, and the doctor made her promise that while he deemed her well enough to go to her parents' service, which, by the way, a minister performed, not Tony himself, made her promise she would take a tranquilizer afterwards because she was still emotionally fragile. Just bear with me here because I'm looking through my notes going back and forth. Tony, she didn't ask for art supplies right away. Tony surprised her with them later on in the book, and he actually convinced her at one point to allow a hairdresser to dye her hair a light silvery blonde so she would look more like her great-grandmother Jillian and her grandmother Lee. And she never escaped out of her chair. In the beginning of her time at Farley, she was confined to her bed. She wasn't up and about in her wheelchair too much. She did go and explore Jillian's room, and Nurse Broadfield immediately wheeled her back, terrified that she would get in trouble. No one is supposed to be in there. She was terrified of losing a job over it and told Annie not to say anything. So that whole escape scene, while Tony goes out to run errands and she escapes with the bed sheets, never happened. Eventually, Tony actually had a ramp installed so she could go and explore the grounds. So, also, her maid Millie wasn't really that chatty in the book and as confident as they portrayed her. But that she wasn't really an important character, so I wasn't too upset about that. Nurse Broadfield never had an encounter with Luke. He never came to try to see Annie prior, so they never met each other. Annie never found her unsent letters to Luke in Tony's office. So, Nurse Broadfield, doing Annie's leg exercises one day, Annie insisted that she could feel some sort of pain. Nurse Broadfield told her she didn't feel anything and told her to forget about it. Then Nurse Broadfield puts her into the tub, and when she left her alone for a few seconds, Annie could see her toe moving in the water. Nurse Broadfield insisted what she saw was the wave of the water, making it appear as though her toe was moving. So the doctor, as I mentioned before, and this is why this was important, when he comes the day after to check on her progress, she told him what had happened, that she could feel pain, see her toe moving. After he went into the other room to privately converse with Tony, and Nurse Broadfield came back and insisted that what she felt was a phantom pain. Tony was obviously paying the doctor to do what he wanted. I don't believe that Tony wanted her kept a total invalid. I believe he just wanted to control her timetable of recovery to keep her dependent on him. So also in the book, she actually told Tony that she was able to walk a little bit, and in her room got out of her chair, started walking towards Tony, only to collapse. And then when she woke up, the doctor was there, and then after Annie's insistence and complaining, the doctor finally acknowledged that she was making some improvement, but not to push anything and not to do anything without Tony's help. This was after they fired Nurse Broadfield. So Nurse Broadfield, when it came to Annie's meal, her wanting something more appetizing to eat, she never took an attitude with Nurse Broadfield and never threatened her the way she did in the movie. I know secrets. Sorry, my camera keeps going. I know secrets too. How do you think Tony would feel if he knew what was going on? Something like that. So Nurse Broadfield, insisting she had to eat things that were easy to digest, finally relented and had Rye Whiskey prepare her something different. So after she got sick, Rye Whiskey actually came up to check on her and apologized for her getting so sick, and she said, "It's not your fault. I'd had no trouble digesting your food before," to which Rye said, "I thought surely the medicine that Nurse Broadfield gave you would make you feel better." "Medicine," she said. "Well, yeah. I gave her your plate of food, and I saw her sprinkle something on it, and she said it was medicine." That's how Annie knew that she messed with her food. And it was at that point that she finally talked to Tony. Annie fired Nurse Broadfield. But that whole scene of her getting into the limo, looking up at Annie's window saying, "Now you've gotten me fired, see how you get along without me," didn't happen in the book. She actually had Drake go to Hasbrook House and bring back some of her belongings, her clothing, her charm bracelet from Luke, her diamond necklace and earrings that had belonged to her great-grandmother Jillian that her mother gave her on her birthday. While he was there, he actually saw Fanny out in the gazebo reading Emily Post. Heaven's death in the book actually seemed to make Fanny change a little bit. Fanny actually started to try to become a better person, do right by Annie, try to be more like Heaven. She still had a lot of her hillbilly ignorance, but her heart was in the right place, and really did try to be a better person. So I wish they had portrayed that more in the book. Let's see. So, okay, so now to Troy's death. Troy's death was not explained well at all, and they may have even made a blunder from the last movie to this one, as Tony tells Annie that Troy was riding Scuttles. He was actually riding Jillian's horse, Abdul-Jabbar, which had always been so unruly that only Jillian could ride him. In the book, when Troy finally takes Annie through the maze to his cottage, and he actually helped Annie get out of her wheelchair and walk a little bit. The way that Troy explained his failure of death to Annie was, I thought the only way to get relief was to commit suicide. However, death, so taken aback by my brazen act, not knowing what to do, tossed me ashore alive. But in my failure to commit suicide, I realized that I was able to escape in another way. Everyone believing that I was dead, I was able to live a life not bothered by anyone else. Of course, Tony eventually discovered my existence, and we decided that enough time had passed that the servants wouldn't remember what I looked like, so we told them that I was a new toy maker living in the cottage, making toys from Troy's old designs. That whole scene in the woods where she's trying to escape and begging Troy to help her to call a cab only to be caught by Tony, with Tony telling Troy, "You're sick," never happened in the book. Troy actually eventually called Fanny and Luke, and told them that they should come to Farthingale and bring Annie home. So, in the book, when Annie expressed her concerns to Drake about what Tony was doing, what was going on, he just chalked it up to her being on such heavy medication, unlike in the movie where he thought she was being ungrateful. And in the book, he said, "If you still feel this way when I come back from my trip, I'll bring you home." So, at Tony's funeral in the book, which, by the way, he died of a stroke, I don't know if they mentioned that, she introduced him to Troy. You know, he was shocked that Troy was alive, and she said, "Troy's the one that actually called Luke and Fanny and told them they should come and get me." And Drake said, "But why?" And she said, "Because he knew all of the things I was trying to tell you about Tony were going on." So in the book, Drake almost seemed to, I guess if Troy believed those things you said were happening, then maybe they were. And so also, as I'm mentioning in the book, Fanny actually came with Luke to rescue Annie, and really it was Fanny's brazen, bold, wouldn't take no attitude that let her barge past Tony, and she really took charge and helped Luke get Annie out. So, let's see. So in the book, when Fanny is explaining to Annie that she knew her mother, Heaven, wasn't really Luke Castile's daughter, that they weren't actually related, when Annie says, "You knew about that?" And she said, "Yeah. Tom, before he was mauled to death by that tiger at the circus, wrote me a letter and told me all of this, and that Luke told him he knew he wasn't Heaven's father," which I don't know if they had mentioned in the previous books. So Luke Castile told Tom he knew that Heaven wasn't his. When Lee first came to him when they first got together, she told him that she had been raped by Tony and was pregnant. So I don't believe I knew prior to this book that Luke had actually known all along that Heaven wasn't his. And Fanny said, all this time, Heaven thought that Luke hated her for killing his precious heaven during childbirth, when that wasn't true at all. So, anyway, Fanny actually didn't think that Annie should go back for the funeral and referred to them as Beantown phonies. That was the way she was. But, so let me just see here if I covered everything that I wanted to talk about. So, I think that basically sums all of it up. Once again, really bad acting. I never liked Jason Priestley as Tony, and that's another one that I almost thought that they, as weird as it sounds, he made Tony seem way more creepy than he was in the book. He's actually one of the executive producers of the movie, which I didn't realize until watching the credits of this one, but bad acting all the way around. So I believe I have one last book to read, Web of Dreams, and then I will watch that movie and give you guys the review. And then I have to reread the Landry series because they did that into a series of movies. But I don't know if I mentioned in my previous videos, with the Dollenganger or Flowers in the Attic series, they actually didn't do the last book into a movie. The last book, which I actually didn't read because I didn't know about until just recently, was called Into the Garden and goes back to the grandmother as a young girl and how she met Malcolm Foxworth and they came to be married. And same thing in the Landry or Ruby series, as you may know it. The last book, which I actually didn't finish, called Tarnished Gold, goes all the way back to Ruby's mother as a young girl and how she met Octavius Tate, who, if you guys have read the book, he was Paul's father. Ruby and Paul dated in high school, not knowing that they were half siblings, same mother, different fathers, but obviously we'll get into that once I actually have to reread those books because I inadvertently started with the second book in the series, and I read them so long ago that I don't completely remember all of it, so I'm going to reread it before I watch those movies. And I hope you guys liked this review. Feel free if you have any questions, anything I left out, comments in the comment section. And until the next book / poorly acted, portrayed movie, I will see you guys then.